But first, this is the weekend of the Jalsa Salana, which may mean absolutely nothing to you.
Or you may know it's an international 3-day gathering of around 33,000 Ahmadi Muslims in the town of Alton in Hampshire. There, all 33,000 Ahmadi Muslims will pledge allegiance to what they say is the world's oldest caliphate. We'll talk about the Ahmadi Muslims and their caliph in just a minute.
And one of our listeners is taking part in the jamboree, as I'm sure no one calls it. Salma Khan got in touch a few weeks ago when she heard David Cameron's speech about tackling radicalisation among Muslims. In the speech, he talked about challenging extremist ideology and the failures of integration, which he said had led to hundreds of Britons joining Islamic State militants. Here's what Salma emailed in response to the speech.
I am a young British Muslim woman that has pledged allegiance to the true Islamic Caliphate. On the morning of the Prime Minister's speech, I flew out to Turkey with my husband, from where I write this letter now. Both my husband and I were born and brought up in London, but we recently felt the need to leave the UK and so booked 2 tickets to Istanbul. As we were boarding our flight at Heathrow Terminal 2, we were stopped and questioned by the security services. Maybe because I wear a headscarf and my husband has a beard.
I don't know if it's fair to say I wrote it to get a reaction, but I think because of what's happening nowadays, because people are going to Istanbul, maybe under the guise that, we're just going there on a holiday, and then obviously, as you know, travelling to Syria, I guess it was written in the sense that, yes, I'm doing what they're doing, but no, I'm not going to go and fight for IS or go to Syria. I'm going back to the UK because I love the UK. And not all of us who are travelling to Turkey are going there to go on to fight for IS or go to Syria.
And you felt the need to say it?
Yes, yeah, I did. I think the climate that we're in at the moment, there's a lot of suspicion. I guess before I left, I was going on holiday. My colleagues, I mentioned that I'm going, and they said, I hope we don't see you on the news. And I was like, no, don't worry, I'll be back, hopefully. So, I just felt as though that was a sort of fitting way to write it, I guess.
But you had a bit of trouble getting there. I mean, you said in your email, as you were boarding your flight at Heathrow Terminal 2, you were stopped and questioned by the security services. What was that like?
Yes. Well, actually, I didn't notice that they were there. We were just in the queue waiting to board the plane. We had quite an early flight. Maybe that was suspicious to them that we were on an early flight. I don't know. So I didn't notice them stop anyone else. My husband actually just said, that there's a couple of guys there. We might get stopped. So I said, well, let's see what happens. And then just before we were going to board the plane, they just stopped us and said, sorry, can we just have a word with you? So they took us to one side, a couple of guys in suits, and they were saying that, where are you travelling to? How long are you there for? What's the purpose of your visit? So we just explained to them we're going on holiday. My husband said, would you like to see our itinerary? And they just asked another few questions like, where have you come from? Like, how far did you travel to the airport? Just things like that. And then, we were very cooperative. The way in which we were questioned, it wasn't overly intrusive. They weren't impolite or rude. And I don't think they were trying to embarrass us. So they didn't make it very obvious that they were stopping us and not anyone else. So then basically we just answered their questions. And then they said, look, you must understand because of what's going on at the moment, we do have to ask these questions sometimes. So we said, yeah, it's fine, it's no problem. And then they just let us on the plane.
And did you feel that? Did you feel that was okay? Or
being a Muslim who wears a scarf, I wasn't shocked that it happened. I think we're past that point now where I can be outraged that I'm questioned. It's so frequent now, it happens so often. And I was saying to my husband, the way in which they questioned us, I didn't really mind so much, no. So, you become, I don't know if desensitized is the right word, but unfortunately you have to get used to it. And we're not ignorant to what's happening. We know that there are people who say they're Muslim and there are many atrocities that are happening in the world in the name of Islam. So I'm not surprised that we're being stopped. I wish we weren't, but I can see why.
As you go on to say in the email, and you've said this already, you did come back to the UK. It wasn't your plan to go on somewhere else.
Yeah.
We had to leave London because we hadn't had a proper holiday in over a year, and Istanbul came highly recommended. Yeah. And we have to go back to work because my husband and I both have public sector jobs and we have to be at work on Monday. And we have to go back because we both love the UK. We're British after all. And of course, this was in the context of David Cameron's speech. How did that, we will talk about some of the detail of the speech, but the tenor of that, how did it strike you?
Firstly, I'll say that I did agree with a lot of his points in his speech. I do believe that the government needs to maybe take a more hardline approach when it comes to extremism, extremist views. The reason why I said that we're both coming back to the UK and we love the UK is to make it clear that, yes, I think he is right to point out that there is a growing number of people who are very disenfranchised, they're disillusioned, they feel like it's us versus the West. So they're, committing atrocities, in the name of my religion, a religion that I don't think has anything to do with the religion that they follow. It's certainly not what I've been taught. So that's why I thought it was important to point out that although I did agree with a lot of points in Cameron's speech, I didn't agree with his opinion or his view that extremism and terrorism is a religious issue. It's not part of Islam. Islam forbids any form of terrorism, any form of extremism. And what I try to tell people, my friends, people at work, is that the religion of Islam is what's in the Holy Quran. And if you want to understand what the true meaning of Islam is, you only have to look at what's written in black and white, and that's in the Quran. In it forbids acts of terrorism, it forbids murder. Muslims amongst each other, many Muslims will know that, we're in our mosques and in our communities and we speak amongst each other and we say it's wrong that this is happening, it's wrong that they're saying that, and it's wrong that people believe that Islam is this way, but I don't feel as though they're doing enough to come forward. That's why also I wanted to mention Cameron's speech in my email, and it's because of his speech that I wanted to write in to say that, look, it's got to a point where I think that if I can use my voice to say that this isn't my religion, this isn't Islam, and if I can maybe help convince people that this is not what we believe, and I wish people would maybe look at this, not this other point of view, because it's the truth, it's what Islam is, then, that's why I wanted to write in.
Here's something he said. Let's have a look at this.
For all our success as a multiracial, multi-faith democracy, we have to confront a tragic truth that there are people born and raised in this country who don't really identify with Britain and who feel little or no attachment to other people here. Indeed, there's a danger in some of our communities that you can go your whole life and have little to do with people from other faiths and backgrounds. So when groups like ISIL seek to rally our young people to their poisonous cause, it can offer them a sense of belonging that they can lack here at home, leaving them more susceptible to radicalisation and even violence against other British people to whom they feel no real allegiance.
What do you think of that?
I think he's right. Certainly in my family, my parents moved here in the late 70s. My grandfather, he worked for British India. My family are educated people. They came here to work and to learn. And I think my mum made a conscious decision not to live in a place where there are a lot of people from our communities, because she wanted to experience the British way of life. So, I do agree that there are people, and I think I probably know a few people that they stay amongst their own people. Children don't mix with other children from other faiths, other communities, and then for them growing up it's very much an us versus them.
You wrote in your email, I see no conflict in being British and my Islamic faith. In fact, patriotism is part of my faith. So when the Prime Minister says there's a theological link between Islam and terrorism, I have to disagree. And in fact, here's what David Cameron said.
What we're fighting in Islamist extremism is an ideology. It's an extreme doctrine. And like any extreme doctrine, it is subversive. At its furthest end, it seeks to destroy nation-states to invent its own barbaric realm. And it often backs violence to achieve this aim.
Tell me more about your thoughts on that.
Yeah, that I don't agree with. The Holy Prophet has said that loyalty to one's nation is part of faith. And I'm an Ahmadi Muslim, and Ahmadi Muslims, we pledge loyalty to our nation as well as to our faith and to our family and to our neighbours and to the wider community, non-Muslim and Muslim community. There is nothing in my Islamic teaching that tells me that you are living in the West, therefore you are not part of them, they are not part of you, you can't be included in anything that they do and they're nothing to do with you. I felt it really important to say that I am very proud to be British. We've come here from countries where we're not able to follow our religion and practice our religion, especially for Ahmadi Muslims in Pakistan. It's been well documented that they've suffered persecution. And at the end of the day, it may be a bit controversial to say, but if Muslims are living here in the West and they're able to practice their religion freely and they don't feel as though they identify with the West and they have no allegiance, no loyalty to the country in which they're living, then they can leave.
Can leave? Should leave?
Should leave and can leave, you know.
Do you think, I mean, you've talked about how being stopped and sometimes being questioned has become a part of life to the extent that it's routine. Do you think it's incumbent upon people like you, with your outlook and your view of your faith and of Britain, do you think it should be part of your role in life to apologise for what extreme people do in the name of Islam? Or is that frankly just insulting for you to have to stand up and say, that's not me and I condemn it and I'm separate from that? Is it wrong to expect you or to ask you to do that?
I think it is, yes. I love Islam. I love the religion of Islam. It hurts me when I hear news stories and I see people say things against Islam and do things in the name of Islam, which is why I do feel like a sense of obligation. If I can communicate well enough, then I should try to spread the message and explain to people that, you know, this is not the true Islam. I don't think, however, that I should have to apologise for people, because I'm saying on the one hand that they're not following Islam, and I'm not going to apologise for their twisted worldview. It is a bit insulting. I am sorry for what they're doing, but it's not my fault. It's got nothing to do with me. And it's really, really upsetting, because on the one hand, we have people that are committing like unthinkable atrocities in the name of our religion. But secondly, you know, most of the people who are suffering in the hands of these people are Muslims themselves. So, you know, I'm not ever going to apologise for them.
Here's something else David Cameron said in that speech.
If you're interested in reform, if you want to challenge the extremists in our midst, if you want to build an alternative narrative, if you just want to help protect your children, we are with you and we'll back you with practical help, with funding, with campaigns, with protection, and with political representation.
I think that's brilliant. I think it's something that has been a long time coming. There are so many Muslim communities and groups who want to help their youth and train them and try to move them away from extremist views. And, you know, so I do think that with the government's help, then it can only be a good thing. The Ahmadi community that I'm a part of, we do a poppy appeal every year. We've raised hundreds of thousands of pounds for the Queen's charities. You know, we help people within our community, people that are not in our community. And if we're also trying to help, then I think a major part of it is reforming the youth. So we do a lot of youth work in our community. If the government is saying that they're going to help us to do that, then it can only be a good thing. But what I do think the government should stop doing is, if people are saying something or inciting hatred against another faith, another community, another group, that must be stopped. And it doesn't matter what community or faith that person is from. I mean, the Ahmadi Muslims, we've been persecuted in Pakistan. You know, people in my extended family, they've died for the cause of Islam. So, you know, I think Ahmadi Muslims understand more than most the beauty of being able to practice their religion. And we're persecuted because we call ourselves Muslim and other Muslims say that we're not. So, you know, we do really appreciate and value having a freedom of expression, but not if it means that we're allowing people to have extremist views against any other religion or person.
Just finally, do you think the day will ever come when being stopped and questioned isn't a routine part of your life? It'll be something that is remarkable again and is so unusual that you would say, wow, I just got stopped and questioned there.
I don't know. I hope so. One thing I would say is that sometimes the worse these Muslims are being, like the heinous, horrible crimes that they're committing, it seems like the worse they're getting, the more people are realising that, hold on, that's so out of what I understand my Muslim friend to do or my relatives to be doing. So the one thing that comes out of it maybe is that people are understanding that it's very much not to do with Islam, and it's moved away from what the true Islam is. But with regards to whether I think it will stop, I don't know.
Listener Salma Khan. We wanted to know a bit more about the Ahmadi Muslims and whether this view was shared by other UK Muslims. We asked Asian Network reporter Attar Ahmad to have a listen.
The Muslims in particular I've spoken to feel after 9/11 the UK has changed, and there's emphasis on trying to work out who the bad guys are, who the good guys are. And for many Muslims I've spoken to, they feel they are pretty much being squeezed. They understand that, yes, there is a threat, but many feel they are being, in particular, identified and highlighted. And in Salma's case, she said they were almost prepared to be stopped. And it's something I've heard kind of time and time again, young British Muslims feeling they will be stopped, they will be questioned. Some Muslims do feel angry. They do feel they are being blamed for what's happening around the world. There are Muslims, though, who understand the risks, the threats, the concerns which are there and are therefore keen to help the government to try to root out these problems.
Well, Salma gave quite a detailed response to David Cameron's speech. I mean, I know you can't speak for everyone, but does that chime with how it's been received by other Muslims in the UK?
Muslims I've spoken to in Bradford, Oldham, Rochdale, it's a very mixed response. They greeted the speech with scepticism, but also hope that things might change, things could be different. But at the same time, once again, many Muslims felt they were being squeezed. The onus was placed on them by the Prime Minister to try and stamp out these problems, to try and tackle the Islamic State, to tackle extremism. And many feel they are everyday, normal British citizens, and it's something which is beyond their capabilities. They have nothing to do with extremism. And many felt the Prime Minister was putting the onus on them.
So tell me a bit more about who the Ahmadi Muslims are.
So the Ahmadiyya community were founded in the late 19th century. They're a sect within Islam which originates from India. Their founder was Mirza Ghulam Ahmad. He claimed to be a prophet and the Messiah. And the community claimed to have around 150 million followers around the world. Some conservative estimates have that around 20 to 30 million.
And what's the difference between the Ahmadi and, if you like, mainstream Islam?
So Ahmadis believe that their founder is a subservient prophet after Muhammad. So Mirza Ghulam Ahmad, who founded their particular community, was a prophet, and he was the Messiah, which major faiths and religions around the world are waiting for. So often these are being persecuted in countries like Pakistan for practicing the faith, for calling themselves Muslims. And it's very much to do with the fact that they believe there was a prophet after Muhammad.
So who is it that don't recognise them as Muslims?
So many Muslim groups and organisations around the world don't recognise Ahmadis to be Muslim. And that's perhaps the majority of Muslims around the world, whether that's Sunni Muslims or Shia Muslims. Many sects and denominations within Islam don't consider Ahmadis to be Muslims. Some consider them to be apostates.
How are they considered in Britain?
The number of Ahmadi Muslims in the UK is around 30,000. And that's compared to the 2011 census said there were around 2.7 million Muslims in the UK. The vast majority of those Muslims may consider Ahmadis to be once again outside the fold of Islam for theological reasons.
So what's going to be happening this weekend?
30,000 Ahmadi Muslims will be gathering in the English countryside to pledge allegiance to their caliph, whose name is Mirza Masroor Ahmad. And they'll be pledging allegiance not only him, but also to their country, and to show that they are proud British citizens, proud British Muslims, and that they do disagree with extremist ideology like the one being pushed out by the so-called Islamic State.
Attar Ahmad. And there are links to more information about Ahmadi Muslims on our Twitter feed at BBC IPM.